In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. Predictability. Now that's something I really like. I like it when things go generally as planned, when people act generally as you expect them to. The universe then seems to be in order, balanced. Now, during these chaotic days, predictability is hard to come by. And I suppose if I turned to the Bible looking for predictability, that would be a disappointment. For the scriptural narrative is filled with the unexpected, the reversal of fortune, the element of surprise. A great example is in this morning's gospel from Matthew, with its three characters. The first character is actually a group of characters, the disciples, who are totally predictable and do not surprise us, yet once again do disappoint us. In this story, a woman comes to Jesus begging for help, shouting for help. Her little girl is sick, possessed by a demon. And to those pleas, the disciples respond, "Send her away." This is not the first time we hear this reaction from the disciples. They did the same thing and asked Jesus to do that before he fed the 5,000 hungry. Send them away. We barely have enough for ourselves. Sharing is not an option. Just as they said to blind Bartimaeus as he begged for healing, "Go away, leave Jesus alone, leave us alone. We're on our own mission, one that does not include you." Just as they said to people bringing their children to be blessed, "Go away, send them away, don't bother us, leave us alone." Typical behavior for the disciples, sadly, typical behavior. The second character is central to this story, the one that Matthew calls the Canaanite woman from the region of Tyre and Sidon. She was a nobody, someone who was supposed to stay in the background, invisible, someone who is not even named, a foreigner, someone of a different religion, a different language, considered to be a different race, a nobody, powerless, a woman, a nobody. We don't know her name, but we do know a lot about her. She is a mother with a very sick child who desperately needs help. She's someone who today we might call one of the marginalized, the other, the outsider, the excluded, the not one of us. Yet, in fact, she is the center, the heroine in Matthew's story today. In this painting, the Reverend Ali Barrett, an Anglican priest from Cambridge in the UK, reimagines the gospel story for us. Here, the Canaanite woman is getting Jesus' attention, touching him, a serious taboo, grabbing him by the sleeve and pointing to her nearly invisible daughter, the one who is totally powerless, sick, totally unvalued. This woman, who was supposed to be voiceless, found her voice and discovered that she had a loud voice, a bold voice, a voice that told the truth, a difficult truth to hear, yet a voice that must be heard. I don't know about you, but I think for me it's easy to see parallels in our own time and place. And then, of course, in the story, there's Jesus. In so many other stories, when the disciples wanted to send away others, he welcomed them. When the hungry came, he said, "Don't send them away, you feed them." When some brought little children, he said, "Allow these children to come," and he blessed them. When someone begged for healing, he said, "Let this suffering one come to me. Do not be an obstacle or a stumbling block. They are welcome. They are welcome. Yet not all were welcome. For today, Jesus surprised me and maybe you. He rejects the person who comes begging for him to heal her little girl. Wow, is this the Jesus we've been hearing so much about? This Jesus seems to be not about the poor, the weak, the sick, the hungry, the other. But then comes a turning point in the story, and something miraculous happens. And the real miracle, in my opinion, is not the healing. The miracle is that Jesus actually listens. Listens to this woman who differs from himself in so many ways, yet shares a common humanity. He listens. And when he truly listens with his heart, he hears her pain, her suffering, her boldness and courage, her truth, her call for justice and healing. Jesus realizes in a profound way that he is to be the agent of God's love, the deliverer of hope to all of humankind, not to just a select group of insiders. And in that process of listening, Jesus is transformed and freed from his own bondage to long-held prejudices and biases. And he is healed just as surely as is the little girl. So, what does this gospel say to us today? What does it say to us in the midst of double disasters? What does it say to us as we continue to struggle with the effects of the pandemic? What does it say to us as we continue to struggle with racism? I don't know about you, but I can't help but ask and wonder, what does this gospel say to me, particularly as a white man? What does it say to me about the ongoing legacy of slavery in this country? What does it say to me about the continuing sin of racism that infects us and threatens, and even especially threatens, our spiritual life? What does this gospel say to me about the profound differences and disparities in education, job opportunities, economic status, access to health care in blacks and Latinos and people of color? What does it say to you? The truth is, we are in a very bad place right now. A place that none of us created, a place that none of us would envision to be anything remotely like the kingdom of heaven on earth, a place that is utterly opposed to God's intention for humanity to be reconciled and whole, a place that is so different from the beloved community we envision and hope for and talk so much about these days. One thing many of us followers of Jesus believe and know in the deepest parts of our hearts is that the status quo must change for everyone's sake, including our own. And change does not happen quickly enough, does it? Yet we have to start somewhere. But where? I think we have a clue to a starting point in this morning's gospel as we look at Jesus' encounter with the Canaanite woman, as we look at Jesus and his uncharacteristic for him behavior, to move from here to the future, to get from our current brokenness to a beloved community. Each one of us needs to take our own first step. And that first step that Jesus took, and if it was good enough for Jesus, why not you and me? That first step that he took and that you and I can follow, if we choose to follow the way of love, is to listen. Listen. Listen deeply from the heart to the voices of the people, particularly the voices of Black people, the voices of indigenous people, the voices of all people of color who have so much to say. so much truth to tell about themselves and us and God's will for us, all as a common humanity. I can't speak for you, but for me, I now know that now is not the time to send them away. I know that now is the time I need to listen to those who preach in the streets, who speak online, who march in protests, who listen. I need to listen to what is being said in the writings of Black authors and through the works of Black artists. And this is an especially difficult one for me. This is the time for me to resist the impulse to problem solve. Now is the time to listen. It's time to listen. It's time to learn. It's time to reflect. That's what this gospel says to me. What about you?